Hey guys, welcome back to Coin Knowledge. So today we're going to be taking a look at the gaming sector to highlight a pick that I think is a great option for somebody who maybe doesn't have exposure to the gaming narrative, but does believe that it is going to be a narrative that will run at some point this cycle. But you want exposure to something that has, not as much risk as, let's say, a single-sided game or some kind of degen pick, under $10 million market cap, but that could still provide itself some decent upside in my opinion here. So as always, before we get into the thick of the video to cover the project in today's video, if you guys could subscribe to the channel and like the video, your support means a lot here. So we take a look at the gaming sector. Obviously we know that gaming has been down, over the last 30 days alone. We see gaming down, less than 20%, as it is slowly recovering here. Not much, but the main point is that we've seen gaming not be a hot narrative, for the majority of 2024. We last saw it run about Q1 24, and then before that was Q4 2023. So it has been quite some time since gaming has ran, but I think that we are still going to see gaming be one of those top narratives this cycle. I think there is some potential big catalyst for gaming in 2025. So I do think that it is, a narrative that I believe you should have exposure to. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to have those degen gaming picks or, single-sided games, but when we look across, the different projects in the gaming sector, there is still a lot of great options here. Now, one that I want to talk about that we've talked about multiple times on the channel at this point, but that I think is getting to a pretty decent evaluation here is Beam. Obviously, if you have been around the channel or if you're in the gaming space, you know what Beam is. It is, more of an infrastructure play in the gaming narrative. If you want to learn more about Beam, we have several videos covering Beam and all the different ecosystem updates they have made over the course of this cycle. But when we take a look at Beam here, it is down 14% on the 7-day. And if we go over the 1 month, it is down almost 50%, but 43% on the 1 month alone. Now, obviously here as of a couple days ago, I think it would have been down about 50% here, which is quite insane. Now, again, we've been seeing the markets for the, since the beginning of this year, 2025, kind of be getting hammered with different, giant events going on in the crypto space, affecting altcoins here heavily. Now, we still see Bitcoin is hovering around that 100K mark, but altcoins are yet to be pumping. We have not seen an altcoin season. Now, I still think that an altcoin season is going to happen in 2025. Now, when, nobody can exactly predict that, but I do think we will see it happen this year. And I do think we will see the money rotate into gaming coins. Now, the beauty with something like Beam is that it is more of an infrastructure play. They did come out with their Beam L1, as it has been, and it still is an Avalanche subnet, which, we're bullish on Avalanche here on the channel. When we look at, the leaders in the gaming sector, we have something like Immutable X here at a $2 billion market cap, and that is it down as well. And then something like Sandbox over $1 billion, Floki, Gala, Ronin, which is still a solid option here. But, all these are, over $1 billion in market cap. Whereas Beam, if we look at where it came from just over the 1 month, Beam started out 2025 at about, $1.5 billion and even ended last year, closing in right at about $2 billion. And at the all-time highs when this thing initially launched, when we saw gaming run, in 2024, crossed over that $2 billion mark. So I think that the fact that Beam is retraced quite heavily here, again, bringing up the fact that, I think that Beam, for still a solid mid-pack, mid market cap pick, something in the gaming narrative that gives you broad exposure to the narrative, but again, in my opinion, isn't as volatile as a single gaming project or gaming token, one that could sit at those like $20 to $10 million in market cap, that could fall, 50% in a day, and really does have a lot more higher risk. Now, this is not to say that Beam doesn't have its risks, but I think it is a very solid project here. Now, we're going to go over this website a little bit, what they have coming on, or going on their roadmap for 2025. Again, we have several videos now at this point covering Beam and more individual updates here, but essentially they are a Avalanche subnet. They are a gaming chain in the space. They're also starting to tap into the AI narrative as well. We saw that we see a bunch of games that are being built on Beam. No, they've made plenty of partnerships with other ecosystems in the space as well. We saw them go live with their Beam nodes here recently, which did quite well. One, they raised a lot of money that way as well. If you see their the current treasury, it's 228 million dollars at this current moment. So one of the biggest treasuries, I believe, in the gaming sector. So when it comes to a point of funding, these guys have the money, one, to not only withstand volatile price action, but this is also essentially a rebrand from Merit Circle, which was around since last cycle, which had a big treasury, as we're seeing now with Beam. So this is a project that has been around for multiple cycles, has been around for a while. They know what they're doing here. It's very solid. Now, if we look at what Beam is going on, what they're looking forward to in 2025, they do see their roadmap here as well. So they say they have plenty of other games that are going to be set to launch using Beam SDK in 2025, such as Trial Extreme and Forgotten Playland. Now, we've talked about Forgotten Playland here on the channel in the past. I do think it is a solid, again, complete degen pick. I think the last I looked, it was hovering like around $1 million in market cap. But, I do believe it was the first native game to actually be launched on Beam. So if you're bullish on Beam, kind of as a a degen beta play, if you think Beam's gonna pump, I think Forgotten Playland, a little bit of alpha there, I guess you could say. Do with that information that you will. Forgotten Playland could potentially be a good degen pick if Beam continues to do well this cycle, which obviously the thesis here is that I believe it will. This will be a year that will populate the Beam network as we see more games, more transactions on, happening on Beam. They have their Beam Ventures, which again, we've covered this when this went live with the update in the news. It's the new $150 million gaming focused fund and accelerator in Abu Dhabi, launching in 2025. So, whereas the price action obviously is down heavily over the 1 month, do not forget that they made that partnership with Abu Dhabi, again, making it the first gaming focused fund, and $150 million is no chump change. That is a lot of money there going into that fund as well, literally just focusing on, again, gaming focused fund and accelerator. So that is still going to go live here pretty soon this year, that I think a lot of people have forgotten about, that Beam has under its sleeve, that will come live. They're going to assemble an independent team to run Beam Ventures to support founders from ideation through successful deployment. I don't know if I said that correctly. Applications for the accelerator opening later this year. Again, for Beam Ventures, keep your eyes on that. The Horizon upgrade will transform the Beam network with an all-new proof-of-stake consensus method following the successful node token mint, which again we talked about here recently. Let me know in the comments below if you were actually able to get in on the node sale, and if you were able to get in on the cheaper initial 1 week reduced cost. I think it was like $1,100 or something like that. Before they tripled the price. Let me know if we were able to help you out, get in early onto those Beam nodes. If you did get a node or mint a node token, then you will be able to start running those this year as well. Start earning rewards from that. In 2025, the Beam Foundation will present across the globe at events like Gamescom. Save the date, May 17th in Amsterdam. So again, some more exposure to Beam, hopefully. And then again, as we mentioned, Beam AI. So they did announce with all these announcements and everything that they are going to be getting into the AI sector, which obviously we know that AI is one of the hottest narratives this cycle. So if we see this, it's an all new research division aiming to advance the intersection of AI and gaming. We are quite bullish on the intersection and the merge and the bridging over between gaming and AI projects that are combining the two. I think that is going to be a hot narrative as well, moving forward. So they're expanding the collaborations with key AI partners and hope to develop practices or practical solutions to drive gaming innovation forward as well. If you want more announcements, obviously they have the link here. You can go onto their Twitter, see a lot more announcements for this ecosystem. I think Beam, again, they have a lot of solid things coming. Now, as far as updates here, they put out constant updates, different games that are coming to Beam, something like Shadowline they highlight here as well. Beam Gamers, King Arthur Legends Rise, strategy awaits. So a lot of things that are happening on Beam as an ecosystem. And again, the beauty with something like Beam is that it's not only tapping into gaming, it's going with AI. They have the funding and the money behind them to withstand, these volatile times while we're seeing that gaming is not running as a hot narrative. They are more of a ecosystem play and one of the top, infra plays in the gaming sector, especially when we look at it, from market cap, because let's be real, if you're in the space, you're not going to be investing in Sandbox, Floki, Gala, Decentraland, Axie. So, I mean, it really is, between Immutable X, Ronin, and Beam. And between the three, I do think that it would primarily be between Ronin and Beam. But I think, looking at Beam here, I think it's just fallen so much recently just from like the last, 60 days or so. Literally, about, a month and a half, about 45 to coming up on 60 days ago. This was at $2 billion in market cap. Now, again, something like Beam, we've been saying for a while that, no official price predictions, obviously, but I would not be surprised, when we see gaming full on run as a hot narrative. I do think that we could potentially see something like Beam get valued to something, along the lines of 5 to maybe 10 billion in market cap, depending how insane the gaming run actually ends up playing out. But when we look at it, again, another thing worth mentioning is that the dilution here is very minimal, from $773 million in market cap to a 976 million FDV. It's definitely something that isn't too much as far as the dilution. So again, when we're looking at upside, I do think Beam is definitely something that if you want to have either a staple or some kind of, anchor for a gaming side of your portfolio, or if you don't want to go too heavy in gaming, which I do understand, because again, it's been difficult holding gaming coins so far because it's been so long since we've seen them run. But typically when a narrative is so beaten up like this and oversold, that could indicate it as being potentially one of the next narratives to run. And I do think that is the case with gaming. So when we look at Beam here, sub 1 million, if you're holding it just to have broad exposure to the gaming sector, I think Beam is something that definitely, in my opinion, could have something like a 5 or 10x left in it. Now, obviously, this is not something that is going to give you that 50 to 100x. I would not expect that. But the difference with something like this, like a solid, mid to higher cap play in the narrative, is to, one, again, get exposure to the broader narrative. But also, the beauty with something like Beam is that, again, not financial advice, just giving you guys the theory here, is that you can go into something like this with size, DCA obviously, but you can go into something like Beam with a lot more size and capital than you would go into something that is at a $10 million market cap and is a single game, because I think Beam is a little bit more solid. Obviously, it's not going to be as volatile as, such a degen low market cap play in the gaming sector, while still giving you overall exposure to the gaming narrative. And I do think that we do see it reclaim its previous all-time highs. So that is my opinion on Beam here, guys. Again, just want to give you guys, different options here in the gaming sector. We cover obviously a lot of low caps, mid caps, but for something that gives you broad exposure to the narrative, I think that Beam is a solid option, one that should not be overlooked just because it is a bigger market cap than most of the gaming plays we do cover. I do think this is a solid pick if you just want broad exposure, or even if you're just looking for somewhere to put a lot of capital in the gaming sector, if you're bullish on it, and maybe all you're looking for gaming is a 5 to 10x potentially. I think Beam is something that you should definitely have on your watch list, one that you should look at. And again, when we look over the 1 year, we saw Beam, this thing launched at about 350 million. Quite, when it launched initially, it was something that we did obviously cover on the channel here when it launched a couple of years ago now at this point, about end of 2023. So it launched about 350 million. That's right when we covered it. So we did get in initially, and it rode up to 2 billion quite quickly. But when we look over the 1 year, Beam did kind of get to these levels, and then it did dip down a little bit as we saw gaming obviously not run over the summer. The summer was heavily, into meme coins, so we saw a lot of narratives take a deep dive, but it got to about a $550, $600 million market cap. So I would not be surprised to see us blip down to those levels. Now, I don't think we're going to, hover around that too long, but even right now, I think if you don't have a position, if the theory and the overall thesis of the video so far, again, seeing that potential to have exposure to the narrative, makes sense, then I think this is potentially a good, level to get an entry in if this project makes sense for what you're looking for in your portfolio. But I do think that we do see it reclaim, to that $1 billion mark when we see the markets flip bullish. But that's just my opinion. As always, guys, just giving you guys my opinion here. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of Beam? What do you think of the gaming narrative? If there are other kind of anchor or like narrative exposure safety picks for the gaming sector that you would pick over Beam, let me know and why. If you guys want to get into the private community and support the channel, there is the Patreon linked below. Or if you guys got value out of today's video, if you guys could like the video, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, see you guys.